Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
So, David Cameron once dismissed the idea of an emergency brake as inadequate. This morning, Downing Street's indicating that a brake on welfare benefits for EU migrants might be acceptable if it was applied immediately, but it would only be a stopgap measure. This evening, the Prime Minister meets EU Council President, he's called Donald Tusk, from Poland, as he tries to broker a deal ahead of a crunch summit of European leaders in the middle of next month. But will the fractious Leave campaigns, and there are several, be in any position to take advantage if the Prime Minister is seen to fail? Here's our Giles.
Right now, the future of Britain inside or outside the European Union is being decided. You might think it started here in Brussels, or that the media's massed ranks are awaiting the outcome in the European Parliament in Strasbourg, or that we're hovering with bated breath for a decision in our own parliament. But no. This week the decision was made in Havering in Essex.
In this chamber right now, Havering councillors are debating whether to vote to leave the EU. If they do, of course nothing will change, because the smart amongst you know no council, not even the British Parliament, will have that vote. We will when the referendum comes.
Nevertheless, Havering Council deliberately didn't deliberate on the leisure centre or Meals on Wheels. However, the Prime Minister, meanwhile, was hurrying for a deal on wheels, not with councillors, but 27 EU member states. It's his plan to block in-work benefits for EU migrants for 4 years that's getting the bumpiest ride. The EU counter-proposal of an emergency brake on access to benefits, if a country can prove its welfare system's under strain, has not gone down well with Eurosceptics back home.
I don't think it is a proposal. I mean, it's a bad joke. They're saying that we're allowed to go to Brussels and ask their permission to change our benefit rules, and then they'll say no. Well, we can do that at the moment.
David Cameron still wants that benefit ban and knows accepting the emergency brake as is would only accelerate any campaign to leave.
We want to end the idea of something for nothing. People said that was impossible. There's now a proposal on the table. It's not good enough, it needs more work, but we are making progress.
I believe you've got to put country before party, country before personality, vote for freedom and vote for Leave. Thank you.
In Havering, they aren't waiting for a date or a settlement, and the Prime Minister knows Brexit supporters are eyeing his own cabinet to see who might be tempted to do the same.
Michael Gove might come out for Leave. Boris Johnson, though it's rather doubtful, might just possibly come up for Leave. Theresa May, who's certainly preoccupied by immigration control, maybe. And then finally there's Sajid Javid, the business secretary, who's got the most Eurosceptic record of all. But it is very difficult when you're a government minister and you've got real feelings of loyalty to your party and your Prime Minister to depart from the line. And a lot of pressure, moral pressure, if you like, is put on you.
A Havering Borough MP thinks that kind of pressure is wrong.
I think that this is a decision that we all have to make from our conscience, and it shouldn't impede on people's political careers. People should be able to make up their own minds and not worry about whether they're going to be sidelined or punished as a result.
Those who do out themselves for out will need campaign wizards who can lead an official Brexit charge. Which of two battling groups that is yet is undecided. But so far both have seen a bad spell of personality clashes and darkening moods, way over the heads of most grassroots Brexiteers. The chance of winning over undeclared MPs is the magic they're looking for.
Well, we did describe it as like the Dementors slowly sucking the people up out of the body corporate, effectively. And I do think that there will be a coming together now. And probably for very good reasons. There have been divisions in the past, but I think this campaign won't be just about politicians. It's about the people versus the elite in many ways. In fact, you have a referendum, don't you, really, when the politicians can't decide what it is they want to do.
Meanwhile, back in Havering,
The United Kingdom Independence Party motion is therefore carried by 30 votes to 15.
so councillors in Havering have voted for a motion that says they would like to leave the EU. Now, there are plenty of councillors who said they don't have any business debating this. Far more important things they should be talking about. But what it might show is that for some people, and in this case an official elected body, never mind what the date is and never mind the renegotiation, they'd like to make clear their views right now.
That was Giles, and I'm joined now by the Conservative MP Steve Baker, co-chairman of Conservatives for Britain and director of the Vote Leave campaign. Welcome to the programme. Now, if the Prime Minister can get an agreement that there'll be a break on welfare payments to migrants the day after the referendum almost, isn't that a powerful thing to take to the country?
It's not a powerful thing at all to take to the country. I hope you won't mind me saying it's Bernard Jenkin who's the Conservative director of Vote Leave. Oh. But we've been told by the OBR that it would make not much difference even if the Prime Minister did get this break. And by the way, it'll only take one case brought forward by activist lawyers. And the European Court of Justice, we would expect to strike down such a measure. So we think it's a red herring. We think it's undeliverable, as John Redwood said, a bad joke. And I think that they've ended up trying to manufacture the appearance of success out of very little.
So, as things stand at the moment, there's nothing the Prime Minister is going to bring back that would make you want to stay in?
Well, I've been very clear throughout the whole period that most of us want to end the supremacy of EU law in the UK, make our own laws in our own Parliament. The Prime Minister said something very similar about the European Court of Human Rights. Of course, now much of the same substance is under the Charter of Fundamental Rights. Demanding an opt-out from the Charter is something the Prime Minister's had to give up. I mean, there are so many inconsistencies.
So the answer is no?
The answer is no. Okay. I expect at this stage a good number of colleagues to join me in campaigning to leave.
Well, how many Tory MPs are going to campaign for out?
Well, what I've always said, of the 150 who are on the list who've expressed an interest, about a fifth I've always thought had made up their minds. They've been hardening up. I would now expect between sort of 50 and 70 within that.
So no more than, you believe, 50 or to 70 Tory MPs campaigning on your side of the referendum to leave?
That would be my expectation at this stage.
Well, you and other Tory Eurosceptics, we heard John McDonnell there saying he really wanted to get this out of the way. He's not going to. It doesn't sound to me like Labour will join with the SNP on any delaying tactics for the referendum. Would you like the referendum to be later?
Well, realistically, we're campaigning now to leave the EU, and we've secured all of our objectives for this stage of the campaign. But there is a good case to be made that a June date would trespass too much on various elections in May, and I think it's very clear that the campaigns will be more ready to inform the public by September. So I think there's a good case to be made for a referendum in September.
But you would need Labour to back you on that, wouldn't you?
Well, of course we would. In the circumstances,
to get it through in the Commons.
I would prefer that the government brought forward a measure that went through the Commons without a row. But of course, if Labour and the SNP and Conservative colleagues wish to put something through, then of course we'll be able to.
What's the biggest beast from the Cabinet you hope to get on your side?
At this point, I think if any member of the Cabinet hasn't made up their mind, it's very difficult not to rule them out. So I think I'm prepared at this point to go into the campaign without any Cabinet big beasts. Obviously, it'd be a bit surprising at this point if Chris Grayling didn't declare for leave after.
Would he count as a big beast?
Well, I think he does count as a big beast. Leader of the House, given all the roles he's had in government. What does a little beast look like?
Well,
I think these are things for others to say. But people know which Cabinet members are discussed. But
Theresa May, you got any hopes on her?
Well, Theresa May made a speech on immigration, which is extremely difficult to reconcile with our membership of the EU. The planned ideas on benefits wouldn't touch the sides, but it really is a matter for her, and I have not had the conversation.
Given up on Boris Johnson?
Well, Boris, in the press, occasionally flirts with it, but I think that Boris is a typical Conservative. He loves Europe. He'd love the European Union to be really quite different, but when the moment comes, well, we'll just see what he does.
That sounds like you've given up. Now, we're told that the state of the Leave campaigns, to use a word, is fluid, and the fluid is blood. When are you going to stop knocking lumps out of each other and unite against the common foe?
Well, I'm not knocking lumps out of anybody, and I very much regret that this week we've had distractions from the core strategic aim of leaving the EU, and I very much regret they've erupted into the press. What I know is that everyone involved wishes to reach a resolution, everyone involved is willing to move on, and I hope we do so quickly. get designation for Vote Leave and go on and fight a winning campaign.
Now, you're not a director of Vote Leave, as I said, but you are on the Parliamentary Planning Committee for Vote Leave, so you are associated. Did you agree with the attempts to get rid of the two full-time people running it, Dominic Cummings and Matthew Elliott?
I have to say a lot of this stuff is a matter for the board, it's a matter for the people
involved. Did you
involved.
agree with whether they should go or not?
What I think is that at this stage, it's very, very late in the day to be making such a profound change. But that given the severe concerns of my colleagues, it's quite clear there are going to have to be material changes in Vote Leave in order to carry parliamentarians with the campaign.
What does material change mean?
There's going to have to be a greater degree of involvement with parliamentarians so that they feel they're meaningfully helping to shape the campaign in order to win the core vote, the core and the swing voters who we need.
Do you think you'll see a merger in the end? I think surely that's what all of you need. You're up against the government, a huge machine. Don't you need to be united?
It's a David and Goliath battle. We do need to be united, but the process of unity will come through designation, because I think realistically Leave.EU is looking more at the core vote, whereas Vote Leave knows we need the swing vote to win. So there needs to be an accommodation. We need to have non-aggression. We need the two campaigns to go forward and make their case. But I'm confident that Vote Leave can and will win the referendum.
I wouldn't give away the mop just in case there's some more blood to wipe up. Steve Baker, thank you.